Huh? Sophia, did you make a new friend? My daughter Sophia is good at drawing and always shows me her works. But that day, the picture Sophia showed me had a girl I had never seen before. No matter how much it's a 6-year-old's drawing, I can usually tell who her friends are if I see them every day. Is this girl a new friend? That's what I thought when I asked her, but Sophia gave me an unexpected reply. This is my sister. But she has a different mom. Sophia said this with an innocent smile. Sophia's sister? A different mom? What is Sophia talking about? Unable to understand the situation, I rushed to my brother, who is a lawyer. My name is Emily. I'm a 29-year-old illustrator working from home. I met Chris at a mixer during my senior year of college, and since then, we've been living happily as a family of 3 with our daughter, Sophia. At least, that was the plan. I usually don't attend mixers, but at that time, there was someone who wanted to meet me. My friends, not wanting to miss out on a mixer with businessmen, pleaded with me to go, and I reluctantly attended. At this mixer, Chris pursued me earnestly, and as someone who was completely out of the dating game, I was swept off my feet by his charm, and we started dating. We ended up getting married the following year when I got pregnant. At that time, I was 23 years old, just about to start my career, and Chris was 3 years my senior at 26. My parents were strongly against marriage. But I was already head over heels for Chris and couldn't consider not having his child. In the end, I went against my parents' wishes and married Chris. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the beginning of my misfortune. Shortly after we married, I found out that Chris had been lying about various things. First, he wasn't a businessman but worked at a nearby factory. He also had a previous marriage and, in fact, had a child. I wouldn't have refused to marry him if I had known, but I was shocked that it had been kept from me. Chris thought that no one would accept him if they knew he worked at a factory. He thought no one would marry him if they knew he had a child from a previous marriage. Both lies were told out of his desire to marry me and stay with me. At the time, I was flattered that he wanted to marry me so badly. I was happy, believing he truly loved me. The reason for his divorce was that his wife had cheated and left home with their child. Clearly, it was his wife's fault, but it didn't change that it was his child. Chris told me he was sending $1,000 a month to his ex-wife as child support. Isn't $1,000 a month too much for child support? I did think that, but Chris wanted to provide, even if it meant stretching financially, because he couldn't be with his child. I saw Chris as a pure and kind person. After we got married, to save money, Chris moved into my place. I had been working from home as an illustrator since college. After winning a contest in my junior year, I started getting various job offers from companies and even held a solo exhibition. So, I had been living alone in a 3-bedroom condo since college. This space was sufficient for a child for the foreseeable future. Looking for a new place would have meant additional costs. So we decided it was best to live together here. Most of Chris's salary went to child support, so inevitably, rent and utilities continued to be covered by my salary as they had been when I was single. Honestly, if we could live happily as a family of 3, that was enough for me. However, after our daughter Sophia was born, Chris started coming home less and less. Chris's factory operates on a fixed rooster, so there shouldn't be any overtime, but he started coming home late, saying there were machine troubles. It started as just a few times a month, but by the time Sophia was 2, Chris would come home late from hanging out after work, saying things like, "I was invited by my colleague," or called by a buddy. Additionally, on weekends, he would leave for visitation days with his child from his previous marriage. Eventually, Chris rarely came home, and when he did, it was just to get some spending money. Then 4 years passed. One day, when Sophia turned 6, I got a call that my mother had suffered a stroke. Thankfully, she was not in life-threatening condition, but she needed to stay in the hospital for about 2 weeks. My father was traveling abroad for work, and like me, my brother had moved to the city and was thriving as a lawyer. I was the only one who could take care of our mother. I explained the situation to Chris and told him I wanted to go back to my parents' home until my mother was discharged. It's a 3-hour by plane from our home, so commuting between home and the hospital was not feasible. I can work from anywhere, but Sophia is still too young. She has school, so I can't take her with me, and she can't stay home alone. My friend takes care of Sophia after school on weekdays until the evening, but I can't leave her on nights and weekends. Chris, who hardly ever comes home, was the only one I could ask to take care of Sophia. I told Chris that even if it was just for this period, he needed to come home after work and look after Sophia. Chris, while concerned for my mother, reluctantly agreed, making a clearly reluctant face. Sophia will be at her friend's house until 6, so go pick her up. Then, could you handle dinner and homework? That'd be great, right? Every day? Yes, every day. What about the weekends? Stay with her on the weekends too. Can't you just take Sophia? I can't pull her out of school for 2 weeks. Besides, I'm not going out for fun. Help out for once. Sophia is your child too. After saying that, Chris reluctantly agreed. I explained the situation to Sophia, and the next day, I headed to my parents' house. Rushing to the hospital, fortunately, the symptoms were mild, and there was no lasting paralysis. My mother was able to be discharged a bit earlier than planned, on the 10th day. My father managed to adjust his work schedule to be back on the discharge day, and they could spend some time together at home. Relieved that my father had returned, I decided to go home a bit earlier than planned. I contacted the friend who had been taking care of Sophia and my other friends and went straight to my friend's house to pick up Sophia. After thanking my friend, I returned home, and while I cleaned, Sophia quietly worked on her picture diary. Sophia loves drawing just like me, and keeping a picture diary has become her daily routine. As I finished cleaning and went over to Sophia, her picture diary was almost complete. She said it was today's entry. Today's drawing depicted her playing with her friend Hannah, whose mom had been looking after Sophia. As a doting parent, I can easily tell who she is drawing because Sophia captures people's features so well. After finishing today's entry, Sophia also showed me the diaries from the days I was away. Most of them were of her playing with Hannah and Hannah's mom. I wondered if Chris really took good care of Sophia at night. Sophia would likely have mentioned it in her diary if Chris had fed her. While thinking this, I flipped through the diary. Then, I noticed the entry from the weekend I was at my parents' house. This was the day I couldn't ask my friend to watch Sophia, so I had asked Chris. But the drawing shows an unknown girl. The picture depicted Sophia and a girl I had never seen, playing house at home. There shouldn't be any friends at our house over the weekend I was away. Could it be the child from his previous marriage? But that child should be about teenage by now. What was going on? Puzzled, I asked Sophia. Huh? Sophia, did you make a new friend? This is at our house, right? Then Sophia surprised me with her response. This girl? Yes. This girl is Sophia's sister. But she has a different mom. What? I let out a bewildered voice unintentionally. What does it mean she has a different mom? Not a big sister, but a little sister? Grasping at any possibility, I asked Sophia again, but she replied, she's a sister. Because Lisa is only 4 years old and I'm already 6, so I'm the big sister, right? She answered innocently laughing, but this was no laughing matter. Lisa? A name suddenly mentioned that I had never heard before. Sophia's sister with a different mom. Does that mean she's Chris's child? I had heard that Chris had children before marrying me. But those were before we got married, so naturally, those children would be older than Sophia. There exists a younger child with a different mom than Sophia. There's only one thing that could mean. Overwhelmed, I found myself unconsciously heading to my brother's office, who is a lawyer. In a near-panic state, I approached him and he kindly welcomed me. He listened to my story with surprise and introduced me to a reliable detective. As I explained the situation to the detective while showing the picture, Sophia chimed in, "This is me, and this girl is Lisa. Lisa is 4 years old and she's my sister. But Lisa is mean, she hid my colored pencils. Dad told me that she has to be patient because I'm the big sister. If being mean is what having a sister means, maybe I don't want one." Both my brother and the detective were at a loss for words after hearing Sophia's story. A few days later, I received a call from the detective with the results of the investigation and went to my brother's law office again. My brother had already heard about the investigation from the detective and said to me, "You might want to brace yourself for this information. Are you okay?" But I was already prepared. "It's okay. I kind of understand, and I'm ready." However, the results of the investigation were beyond my imagination. Chris seems to be having an affair. Well, that figures. Just as I imagined. When I asked, the detective seemed hesitant to continue. "This is where you really need to brace yourself. Are you sure you're ready? Does that mean the affair partner is someone I wouldn't expect?" Various people popped into and out of my mind. It couldn't be Hannah's mom, could it? No, that can't be. In the end, the only people I could think of were other moms. There's no use thinking about it alone. "Please tell me." I resolutely told the detective to proceed, and he nodded before beginning. "The other person is Grace. Do you know her?" "Grace? The name sounds familiar, but who is she?" "I can't recall." "How is she connected to my husband?" Then the detective revealed, "She's Chris's ex-wife." "What? His ex-wife? But she took the child and left home. Are you saying they got back together? Since when? Why?" The answer filled my mind with confusion. My brother tried to calm me down by saying to take a moment, but I couldn't stay calm. Then the detective patiently answered my questions. "It seems that the story about her taking the child and leaving home was a lie." "What?" "Chris was the one who left home. Apparently, their divorce was not because of discord. Their relationship continued even after the divorce." Wait, that doesn't make sense. They were getting along but suddenly divorced, and Chris left home. But their relationship continued? Yes. By the way, the child at that time, Karina, seems to be with Grace's parents. The only thing that matched the story I heard from Chris and reality was the fact that Chris and Grace had divorced. Sorting through the detective's information, it turns out that Chris and Grace got married shortly after high school due to an unexpected pregnancy. Chris then dropped out of college to start working at a factory to support the family. But his salary during his first year of day shift work was meager, and they struggled to make ends meet. Despite this, Grace was unsupportive, complaining about the crying child, pushing Karina off to her parents, and living lavishly without working, buying brand items. Living with Grace under such conditions meant inevitable financial hardship. Yet, it seems they still loved each other. They must have thought of some way to live together comfortably. That's when they came up with the idea of a fake divorce. If Chris remarried someone wealthy through a fake divorce, they could secure some money. Furthermore, if Grace takes care of Karina, they could also receive benefits. Chris thought that if he lived off his new wife's money, he could give all his earnings to Grace. It seemed like a win-win situation. In fact, Grace had reported to the welfare office and was receiving welfare benefits. With Chris's salary and the grants financially comfortable, they had Lisa 4 years ago. The weekend visits Chris claimed to be making to see his child from his previous marriage were not to see Karina, but to see Lisa, who was born 4 years ago. Even his weekday outings were visits to Grace. But despite his ongoing relationship with Grace and his affection for Lisa, Karina was still left with Grace's parents. I was stunned by their reckless actions. I felt no anger, sadness, or frustration. I was just utterly dumbfounded at them and at myself for being cluelessly content these past 4 years. But what disgusted me even more was how these two selfishly dragged countless others into their mess. Thinking of Chris probably at Grace's place even today made me want to confront them immediately, but my brother stopped me. He was right. Storming in there impulsively would only lead to them brazening it out. That wouldn't happen. I decided with my brother to carefully plan our next steps. I told Chris that our mother would be staying with my brother for her recovery, and that I would also stay there with Sophia for a while, and then left with Sophia. Having rented a condo near my brother's place during college because I felt safer there. I never imagined this decision would come to my rescue. My brother warmly welcomed us, and we began a temporary cohabitation. A few weeks later, as my brother predicted, Chris contacted me. He was furious on the phone. "Hey! What have you done? What is all this about? You won't get away with this." That should be my line. Does he even realize what he's done? Yet, I headed home to put the final touches on my plan, having arranged for Sophia to stay with Hannah's mom. When I arrived, predictably, Grace was there too. "This is my house, you know." Chris still demanded, "What the hell have you done?" He didn't even try to hide Grace's presence. But soon after realizing he wasn't dealing with just me, he was lost for words. Yes, I had returned with not just my brother but also Chris's parents. After explaining everything to them, they knelt down and offered their help. I confronted him coolly. "What do you mean by what have you done? What are you talking about?" Chris probably hadn't expected me to be so assertive. He stammered, "Well, I mean..." He struggled to speak. Grace, seeing Chris's parents, tensed up and looked down. Were they giving up too soon? I pressed them. "You won't know unless you talk. Explain what happened with your own words." Not that I didn't know already, but it's important to hear it from them. I pressed them hard. "The welfare office called about the support allowance. Maybe Emily knows something about it?" Chris started speaking meekly. Where did his earlier defiance go? It seems the welfare office had contacted Grace about potential fraud in her benefit claims. My brother had inquired with the office and predicted they would contact her today. I again confronted them. "So you've been deceiving me all this time?" "Well, not deceiving per se. Not just me, you've also been lying to the government and collecting various benefits, right? Did you seriously think you'd never get caught?" "Really, we didn't intend to deceive anyone. It just turned out this way." "What? What are you talking about? This is obviously premeditated. Even our meeting was orchestrated by you." I was completely fooled. How stupid of me. "No, that's not it. I mean, of course, I love Emily too." Chris tried desperately to explain, but with his remarks, Grace exploded. "What? Love? Then why have a child with this woman? It makes no sense." "Because if we were getting married, having a kid was the quickest way," Grace said. Then they started arguing with each other. "Can we please put your squabbling aside for now?" I interrupted them, exasperated, and Chris said, "I'm truly sorry. It was all my fault. Please forgive me." He begged. "What? Forgive? Who do you think you're asking for forgiveness after all you've done, lying even to the government, and now you ask for forgiveness when your position is threatened? No way. Don't underestimate me." When I shouted, Chris's father seemed to reach his limit and scolded, "Chris, enough is enough." At that moment, further visitors arrived at our house. They were Grace's parents. Apparently, Chris's mother had contacted them. As soon as Grace's parents entered the room, they confronted her. "What do you mean you were divorced? We weren't informed. We're cutting ties with you. Karina will never see you again. Karina has said he doesn't want to see you ever again. We will also take Lisa with us. We came today just to tell you this." Then, turning to me, they said, "We are truly sorry for everything." With that, they took Lisa and really left. It seems Grace's parents were kept in the dark about the divorce, and the couple had occasionally taken Lisa to visit Karina. What kind of nerve do these two have? Ultimately, both children were taken by Grace's parents, and they cut ties with Chris and Grace. "Wait! Lisa!" Grace cried out, but it was too late. It was already too late to regret her actions. Afterward, Grace was presumably shocked by Lisa being taken away. Her eyes were vacant, and she was out of touch with reality. There was no point in discussing anything. Chris, realizing there was nothing more he could do, collapsed to the floor, repeatedly muttering, "I'm sorry." We left the two of them despondent and went home. Later, with my brother's intervention, our divorce was finalized smoothly. Chris started paying for Sophia's child support. Without any financial strategy, the two naturally incurred a significant debt. Though both children were taken in by Grace's parents, living on Chris's salary while managing two adults and repaying debt was extremely difficult. But it wasn't just me demanding repayment. The government also issued an order to return the improperly received benefits. Eventually, Grace was evicted from her place as she couldn't pay the rent, and now it's unclear where or how the two of them are living together. Thinking of the future, I decided to move. I considered taking Sophia back to our hometown, but she had just started elementary school. Respecting Sophia's wish not to leave her friends, we decided to stay in the suburb. I rented another condo near my brother's place, where Sophia and I are now living happily together.